there's some things you may not know about Jackson, Mississippi. And for the most part, they're actually really good things. You know, parts of it not so good, but definitely interesting things that you may really like to know about Jackson. What's up, everybody? My name is Jared Laster. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams right here in the Jackson, Mississippi metro area. And if you're new to the channel, what we do here usually is give you information and show you around the Jackson metro. It's especially useful if you're thinking about moving here, but also if you just want more information about the area. And if one of those is you, make sure you get down there, click subscribe, and hit the bell. That way you'll get notified when the videos come out. Now today's a little bit more of a fun concept. We're not so much talking about things that are super pertinent to you if you're going to be moving here. However, it's still things you may want to know. So stay tuned. We're going to cover those things. And if you're somebody who is thinking about moving here definitely sooner or in the near future, go ahead and reach out to us. People do it all the time, every day. We love it. We can't wait to help you out. So just reach out any way you can. Call, text, email, Instagram, even break out the megaphone. Really, y'all, you know, it don't matter how you get in touch with us. Just as long as you do, because we have got your back moving here to the Jackson Metro. Now, let's get into this. These are some things that I think if you lived here for a while, you may know some of these. I don't think you'll know all of them unless you've gone out and looked for the info like I did, because there's some that I didn't even know. But if you don't live here, you haven't lived here, I doubt you know hardly any of these, if any. So let me know, did you know some of these, or do you find some of these interesting, or do you know some things that I don't know? Let me know in the comments as you watch the video. But let's get into this. I've got a list here. I've got 9 things that you probably don't know about Jackson, Mississippi. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you stick around for the last one on this list, because in my opinion, it is the most interesting of the whole list. Thing 1, we're going to start right at the beginning and go all the way back to before Jackson was Jackson, and that's when it was known as LaFleur's Bluff. That's the little settlement on the Pearl River that would one day eventually become the city of Jackson. It was named after a French-Canadian settler here, Louis Lafleur, and it didn't get the name Jackson until 4 years after Mississippi got statehood, and that would be in 1821, and it was named after then General Andrew Jackson, who would not go on to be president for still a few years after that. Now, thing number 2, the city of Jackson actually does have its own flag. Now, this is one of the things you probably know if you do live here, but if you don't live here, you may not know this. You may not have seen the city of Jackson's flag, which is on your screen right now. As you can see, it's got a gold star in the middle, which represents that it is the state's capital. The blue circle around the star is supposed to represent the Pearl River, which flows through the capital city. The white cross represents the fact that it is known as the crossroads of the South, and the green field kind of stands for a lot of things: growth, prosperity, land, all those kind of things put together. Now, thing number 3, since I mentioned the crossroads of the South, that is one of the names that you may, or nicknames you may hear Jackson referred to as. You'll also see in more modern times especially, the city was sold. It's even on a big mural over there by the Civil Rights and History Museum. But there is another nickname you may not know that Jackson had, and that was Chimneyville, or I should say is Chimneyville. It's not used as widely these days, but that nickname did come from the Battle of Jackson during the Civil War, when Union troops were on the way to Vicksburg. They burned a lot of the factories and warehouses here in Jackson, leaving just the brick chimneys. So with nothing but chimneys around, that's how I got the name Chimneyville. There used to actually be a restaurant over on High Street named Chimneyville, but then it was something else, and now currently I don't think there's anything in there. So it's a good restaurant spot if you are looking to open a restaurant in Jackson. Thing number 4 is probably one of the maybe most interesting and not so great, but also good at the same time, things on the list here, and that is, well, the good part of it is Mississippi was the first state to pass a law giving wives, married women, the right to have property stay in their names, and that was passed in 1839, and it stemmed from a lawsuit right here in Jackson where a Chickasaw woman was married and her husband's creditors tried to take her property from her to pay for the husband's debts. These were properties that she had before coming into the marriage. Now, unfortunately, the bad part of this is that the property was a slave in Mississippi in 1839, obviously had its issues. But in this instance for women's property, there was at least a small victory there, because that gave women, married women specifically, that right to keep property in their names and not have it seized by creditors for their husband's debts. So that actually went on to get applied to a lot of other things and just general types of property, even though the reasoning for granting that was because of a Chickasaw tradition of inheritance and how that worked and how that came into the marriage, and then it went on to apply. So you have the Chickasaws and that lawsuit to thank for at least the original occurrence of women having that right in marriage. Moving on to thing number 5, Mississippi, you may not know this, was the last state to repeal Prohibition, this prohibition of alcohol. They didn't do it until 1966, and they didn't even want to do it then. Well, the reason that it actually happened in 1966 was during Mardi Gras, a lot of prominent citizens in the area around Jackson had gotten together at the Jackson Country Club, including the governor at the time, and they were celebrating Mardi Gras with some of that illegal, prohibited alcohol. And the Hinds County Sheriff conducted a raid on the Jackson Country Club, and many of those prominent citizens were arrested, which quickly prompted the legislature to pass a law allowing counties to decide whether or not they wanted to allow liquor and alcohol to be sold. And that is how the law has pretty much remained up until this year. It's actually going to change. So right now, the way it is, a county is dry by default, but they can opt to not be a dry county. So we do have dry counties still here in Mississippi as of this video is recording and released. But the way this is going to change next year is that it's going to flip. Counties will be wet counties, or allowed to sell alcohol by default, and can opt to be dry counties if they want to. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but right now Hinds County is a wet county, Madison is a wet county, Rankin County is a dry county, with the exception of a few areas where I guess it's a little more convenient. Now, thing number 6 is, well, less fun than that, but if you're into geology, is that the word, geology? It's still very interesting, and it actually goes back to 1943. And that's when they constructed the 200-acre scale model of the Mississippi River Basin. Now, the Mississippi River runs all the way up from, I believe, in Minnesota, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So that's why the model had to be so big, and they used it to simulate and predict floods along that river all the way down to the Gulf. This especially impacts the delta areas, like the delta in Mississippi, and they're still having issues with that today, even though they did have this model where they simulated 79 floods before it was discontinued and abandoned in 1979. So it's not really in use today, and it's kind of getting overgrown, but you can still see it, especially if you look at it from the air. If you got a drone, you can go check it out. It is still there. It's in a park in southwest Jackson, and so if you just want to go check out some obscure little things that you can see in Jackson, that's over there. I mean, it's not really little, it's pretty big. It's 200 acres, but definitely interesting thing that you can check out here in Jackson. Number 7, really high up on the interesting list, is people in Jackson love to hit the like button. Okay, I'm kidding. I just had to throw that in there. I'm sorry. But if you like the video, it'd be really cool if you did hit the like button. Okay, but for real though, number 7, much cooler than the like button. The first human lung transplant ever take place in the entire world happened right here in Jackson at UMMC. It was done in 1963, and the surgeon that led that surgery went on a year later to do the first heart transplant in a human, and that all started right here in Jackson. So if you know somebody who's ever had a lung transplant or a heart transplant, you may really have to thank the people here at UMMC for getting that started. On to thing number 8, and this is one you definitely know if you live here, and maybe even if you don't. That is the movie The Help, which was set in Jackson. It was filmed here in Jackson in 2009, and one of the notable places you can see in Fondren is Brent's Drugs, but there's a lot of places around there. But Brent's still has that feel. It really looks kind of the era that's set in the movie, so that's a really neat place you could go check out. And make sure you check out the apothecary while you're there. It's the best not kept secret. It's not a secret, but remember, Mississippi was the last state to repeal Prohibition, so just keep that in mind. And now for the last thing on my list, number 9, and this to me really is one of the coolest things on the list. It's probably the least relevant to anyone alive today, but when the city of Jackson was its most dangerous ever to live in. It was actually about 75 million years ago when it was a volcanic island. That's right, a volcano was right where the city of Jackson. Matter of fact, if you go to the Mississippi Coliseum, which you may have seen in some of our videos, I'll put up drone footage of it now. That right there, what you're looking at, is sitting right on top of the center of what used to be the Jackson volcano. And even though it is long extinct and not presenting any threat to anyone or anything that is alive today, there is still some thermal activity in the area. There's actually a power plant in northwest Jackson where they've got a 102-degree hot spring that can they've drilled down to, and that 102-degree water comes up out of the ground, and that's linked to the old volcano there in Jackson. All right, y'all, that's it for this list. There's some more things I could include, but these were the 9 that I thought were probably the most interesting, or the most interesting that I could find. How many of those did you know? Were there some that you didn't know? And are there some things you think is more interesting that I didn't include on the list? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, give us a like. If you want to see more videos about Jackson, hit the subscribe, click the bell. And if you want to move here to the Jackson metro area, reach out to us. We love it. We can't wait. We're just sitting here waiting for you to call so that we can help you move to the Jackson metro. And you can text us or email us, DM on Instagram, or even
Break out the microphone.
y'all know it don't matter what you gotta do to get in touch with us as long as you do, because